Good morning, everyone. Dr. Fola and organizers of this meeting, thank you for having me. And it's my delight to just raise a few issues about leadership that I hope for all of us who are here, it will get us thinking about our leadership at a personal and joint level. So can I just share the slide that I have? All right, so we're looking at leadership and we're slanting it towards the diaspora. So we like to just use diaspora as a context, but whatever else you put in there, there are basic principles of leadership that I'd like to flag up here and hope it helps us engage with our further discussion as we move on in the meeting. So the aims of my presentation are the following: to enhance our understanding of key concepts that relate to leadership, and in particular, the diaspora, to also hope that we can develop understanding of factors that can either help or hinder effective leadership in whatever context, in whatever situation that we may be. And then I hope too that through this discussion, we will make it a priority as part of our leadership development to promote and to foster collaboration, which is required to develop leadership principles. So making the point that while there's a place for personal development of leadership, we will always work with others in our leadership journey. So what is leadership? Basic influence, the ability of one person to influence others to follow his or her lead. In another platform where I was yesterday, somebody introduced, posted their Instagram link and then said, follow me. And somebody then asked, where are we following you to? All right, so here leadership makes people want to follow in the direction of the leader. So organizationally, leaders want people to follow through in the journey of achieving organizational goals. So that means that a leader must know where they're going and then be able to influence others to follow and ultimately to achieve those goals that the leader has in mind. It is also the capacity and the will to rally men, to rally women to a common purpose. And it is inspiring confidence for people to journey along. So we're seeing the value of, or the prime place of purpose, the prime place of knowing where you're going, goals and visions and objectives. Those must be underpinning any leadership endeavor. So a leader is that person who has the ability to get others to do what they want to do and to like doing it. The aspect of liking to do something is important of leadership capability. So not forcing, not coercing, not making people to grudgingly do a thing, but to be able to do all that it takes to get people to work, get people to participate and engage and enjoy the journey. At some point, I was told that a diplomat is somebody who can tell another person to go to hell, and then the person looks forward to the journey to hell because of the way the diplomat has spoken about hell. So what about diaspora? So diaspora will mean people who have spread or been dispersed from their homeland. So I said we're using that as a context. And we can then, if we remove diaspora, we can put challenge, we can put organization, we can put whatever it is. So it means that leadership always operates within a context, and leadership is there to solve problems. So diaspora in itself, when anyone or a group of people have left homeland, that means they go to a place where they have to learn new cultures, where they have to try to settle down. Oftentimes they find that they might be in the minority. All of those challenges are there. And today I'm hoping that as we speak, we'll then find that no matter the challenges, there are key principles that will help anyone to succeed in their leadership, whatever the context. And to emphasize that diasporas can play an important role in the economic development of both their countries of origin and the country where they reside. So if we get it well and get people prepared, especially in the context of leadership, then diaspora notwithstanding, you can succeed, you can excel wherever you are, you can contribute to the well-being of the country where you are and the country of origin. And that's why diasporas can also promote trade, they can create businesses, they can support entrepreneurship, They can transfer new knowledge and skills, and these are part of the things that I find in the agenda for today's discussion. And so we're using leadership to set the tone for that dialogue. Well, I've put here managing change to say clearly one of the things leaders do is to manage change. Change is just part of life. So change can appear as an organizational problem. Change can appear as a community issue. Change can appear in, it's just part of life. So leadership always have to do with managing change and managing it in such a way that organizational, corporate, or personal goals will be achieved. So leaders are change agents, and change is part of life. That's what this slide is saying to us, that no matter who we are, no matter, regardless, change will always affect us. And if people are not prepared to manage change, and today we're saying managing change properly through leadership, change can mess people up. So in our current 21st century era, there are some important changes that people have to be conversant with, and they're regulating a lot of what we do. Globalization. So even talking about diaspora, diaspora has become a very strong subject because of globalization. People being able to move apart more frequently, exchange information more frequently. National boundaries have become thinner and more permeable because of information and communication technology, migration, cultural synthesis. All of these are changes, and for some, it has meant they've gone down, but we want to remain up no matter what the changes are. And because I've said change is just part of life, it doesn't stop. So today we're grappling with globalization, migration, cultural issues. Tomorrow we'll be grappling with other issues, but stable leaders mean that they can ride on the wave of change and yet accomplish their organizational goal. Therefore, any leader and organizations that are properly led, they have to be prepared and put in a position to manage change effectively, because, as I put it there, the future has a way of arriving unannounced. So people have to be prepared. If people are not prepared and well positioned, then that means that change can sweep them off. Right. So key thing I want to emphasize in this discourse is the place of personal leadership development. And while I will also further down the line emphasize that collaboration is there, while you collaborate, like you said, you must bring something to the table of collaboration. So I hope that everyone on this platform will take seriously the role of personal leadership development. So personal leadership is about taking responsibility for your own development as a leader. And so you then have a positive impact on your own results, on your own team, on your own life. A leader who is not stable, who is not investing in their own personal development, can then find that they are preaching to others, but it's a matter of do as I say and not as I do. It's only a matter of time and crisis will overtake them. So leaders will need to be aware of their strengths and their weaknesses and the things that drive and motivate them, and then to be able to manage this effectively so they can achieve better results in their leadership roles. So important that people keep a tab on their lives, on their strengths, on their weaknesses. And of course, these are whole subjects, but generally it's to say you can need to take care of your strengths and grow in them, and then in your weaknesses as a leader, because nobody can do everything. A lot of collaboration will be to get people who are better in other areas than yourself, and you're investing in the place where you do very well. So you become an expert, and then you become an award winner. People win awards not because they know everything or they're all-rounders, but then in particular areas they have excelled. So growing as a leader entails continuous effort to expand your capabilities and your strengths. It's part of why we're spending some time together today, if only to encourage, inspire each other. Ultimately, you must take and apply them to your own personal life. And that leads me to the place of character in leadership. And so leadership is both a combination of character and skills, and different authors, depending on their worldviews, will give different percentages. But I've read Generally, there's a consensus that even character is stronger than skills. It's possible to acquire skills, but if character is not there as a foundation, the skills can make a person arrogant, rude, haughty, uncontrolled, and then crisis can overtake them. And so putting figures there, some have said sometimes character can be up to 80% of what it requires to be a good leader, skills 20%. But just to mention that character, which is that personal grounding, is so important to hold up people in leadership, especially as they grow in their influence, whether politically, economically, you need to have a balanced character. So we acquire skills through training and education. Character then means you must deliberately apply those learning and training to your own personal life and let it work for you. You can't talk about character without talking about moral and mental features that define a person as either good or evil. And there are leaders who lead people and they're evil. We see them especially on the global scene in countries where you have dictators, you have corrupt leaders. They still lead, but their corruption then means that they mess other lives, they mess their nations. I'm hoping that as people on this platform will be leaders who impact very positively on those we lead at whatever level. So making a point on the place for personal leadership and character development. Now, because I'm still talking about individuals and their leadership, we'd like to recognize then what leadership style will mean. Leadership style then means that while there are common principles of leadership, you'll find that there'll be variations of how these principles are applied and emphasized on the basis of different styles. So again, we'd like to recognize that all human beings are made differently and uniquely, which is great. And that is what the growing emphasis on equality, diversity, and inclusion in many settings is recognizing that people are different, but then differences do not have to be a threat. We need to be able to harmonize and harness the benefits of our individual differences for, again, common good. So that's why it's important to recognize that different leaders will have different styles. And if people are not careful, they do some comparisons rather than recognizing that different leaders will lead in different styles and in different circumstances. It might be a question of one being better than the other. But as long as principles are adhered to, I make a submission that no one style is better than the other. What is important then is to have an insight and understand your own behavioral style. It will lead and influence your own leadership style and those of many other leaders that we may know as we journey along. So just taking some established leadership styles, there are leaders who are drivers. And by the nature of a leader who is a driver, you find that they are people who are very forceful, they're determined, they are highly opinionated, and you can describe them as unforgiving. They are goal-getters, they are commanders. And many who work within the military setting and where hierarchy is emphasized, they will find that they do well as drivers. It's, the military people have an adage, they say you obey before you complain. So the boss gives an order, he expects you to first execute the order before you come to complain or dialogue. Those are driver kind of leaders. And you need to understand that, again, in different contexts, different styles will do well. There are leaders whom you can describe as supporters, calm and quiet, easygoing, very agreeable, very negotiable, very democratic. Again, it will lead into people's personality. In some cases, that would be the best way to approach matters. In others, maybe not. And in looking at these different styles, that will lead us to the fact of different styles working, complementing each other for best result. But no one person can do it all. No one person can exhibit all of this. There will always be those predominant styles that, are linked to people's personality traits. The inspiring leader is one who's generous, outgoing, weak-willed in comparison to the commander leader. The commander leader wants once he says a thing, it's a directive, it has to be taken. But the leader who is a bit weak-willed, it's not a weakness, though, it's just that in that case, it means that they can be amiable to take other people's views and opinion, and they are very creative. And then you have the analyzer, the thinker leaders who are very precise, perfectionist, very critical, they set high goals, they don't compromise easily. The point in saying all of this is understanding your own strengths and your weaknesses, often through a SWOT analysis, and then know the style that does best for you, and then recognize other styles and complement each other in leadership. So having emphasized the place of personal development, it then fits neatly into the very fact again that we must work as teams. And what a blessing a team will be if it has the right combination of people in terms of styles, exposure, and what they bring to the table. So a one-man operation will always destroy leadership in others. For people who become selfish in their leadership approach, it can become competitive, it can become destructive, arrogant, if we don't appreciate, as I like us to do in this meeting, that we do better as teams. But I recognize my strength, I recognize my approach, I'm comfortable in there, and I recognize someone else's, their style and approaches, and we complement each other. That way, I know what I can do well. The one I can do quite well, I defer to someone else. So once again, in talking, using one man here is just talking about why people don't appreciate others and the need for collaboration. There's no one person who can effectively meet the various demands of various people within organizations. So it's always important that we collaborate. So when leadership endeavors are harnessed, the word is there together, through collaboration, we multiply effectiveness. And some aspects to help people to get better at collaboration and personal leadership is then mentorship. It's becoming more and more imperative that young leaders are mentored. They have people who they can trust, counselors, teachers, advisors, and guide. If you have a mentor, the journey becomes quicker for you. You can then benefit, very much leverage on the experience of the leader. Recently, I was reviewing a book at a book launch, and really made the point that by the time somebody puts a book down, they will have, especially if they are, on a subject they have investigated and researched and working, say 25 years, and they put together a book and somebody buys it for, say, 20 pounds. What they are buying is not just what 20 pounds, is what the many years of the experience that is shared, the much efforts and the years too that is taken to produce that book. What am I saying? The mentorship, just like studying, means we can benefit from other people's experience, learn from their lessons, and not make the mistakes that they make. But it's really a shoulder to lean on and a wing to fly faster and quicker. So mentorship recognizes the powerful influence that role models can be on other people, especially those who are still upcoming in their leadership disposition. Well, a mentor will need to be passionate, available, certainly competent, and willing to support a younger leader, an upcoming leader. And the benefits are manifold. It makes learning faster, helps increase loyalty. People will be very glad to have somebody who can trust them, who can guide them. So it will increase mentees' productivity, and of course, somebody they can be accountable to. That's why I want to rest my case, and the organizers will send around. These are the textbooks that have informed and I've used in this preparation. And what more than to say thank you for giving me the time to contribute. And the summary are: number one, leadership is change management. Number two, you must invest in your personal leadership. And number three, you must collaborate with others. So while Diaspora is our focus today, you can apply leadership principles to any circumstance and you will excel. Thank you.
Someone asked, do you have any practical tips for managing change in leadership? So I know you spoke about managing change and that change affects all of us. So do you have any practical tips for leaders in managing change?
Thank you. Practical tips. Number one is recognize, make up your mind that change is part and parcel of life. So when it's happening, just recognize that it is life. So first and foremost, once they settled in your heart that change will always come, always uninvited, then that is number one. So the other thing to do is to understand the nature of the change. What is changing? How is it changing? And that will logically lead you to what adjustments do we have to make. So just very practical example, I've just been reminiscing on a role when I was general manager for an organization a couple of years back. One of my major remits was it's an international charity organization, and they got me in because I've made a point in my work with them that the organization, its influence is growing in terms of its spread to different nations, but the core headquarters, the staff strength I told was not commensurate in terms of that good. So I came in, did a reorganization, and the staff strength was increased by 70%. So that was a major change then. And then the company moved into a bigger complex to accommodate that group. It was what we needed to do then. Interestingly, about a year ago, I went back to the same organization and I found that the same staff strength that we increased a couple of years back has had to shrink because now people are working remotely. So I asked, I said, what about this? What about this? But decks were empty. New change. So when we increased the numbers, people were not working remotely, but circumstances have changed and people now work remotely. And in fact, they had to downsize again, understanding the change and then making appropriate adjustment. And what that then says is an answer that may be correct a number of years ago might not be correct now is the context. Thank you.